go well. Hopefully it'll go well for all of us. Musky fishing's changing. Here's what you need to know. So the whole sport is evolving year by year. And it's funny, you have to change with it to keep up. And so this fish is a perfect example of what's changing in musky fishing. Electronics is the best tool I have in my boat for catching fish right now are my electronics. It's not a rod, a reel, a lure. It's experience and electronics. And so learning to use your electronics is an absolute key. So for young people especially, who are really good at absorbing this stuff, musky fishing traditionally has a learning curve that takes many, many years and lots of experience. And you can cut that down today with what you can learn online and by learning technology really well. And the resource that we have in Ottawa, we're so lucky. This is one of the very best places in the world to be a musky angler. The Americans rated in the top 10 in the world, probably number 6 or number 7. So in terms of a fishing resource that we have in Eastern Ontario, this is the best of the best. So this is an electronics fish. It might have been caught near the mouth of the South Nation last year, maybe. But this fish was caught in the spring. It's a very fat fish for a fish that's caught in the first week of July. Okay? It's caught in dirty water, 4 feet deep. And I drove past that fish with my Humminbird side imaging and I saw that fish on the weeds. We cast at it and it didn't move, but because we saw it, we cast at it a second time and it moved. And that tells me that I'm going to engage it. On the third cast, the fish came off the weeds and followed the bait to the boat. And in the dirty water, I did 5 circles. Okay? We finish at the side of the boat in musky fishing with a figure 8 or a circle. The fish bumped the bait on the second time, and on the 5th time around it ate it. And you could watch it on the fish finder the whole time. If we didn't have the electronics, we wouldn't have caught the fish. So learning electronics in the new age, an absolute key to musky fishing. And the electronics is changing the way that we fish. It's also changing the fish's experience as they get bombarded with more and more sonar waves and whatever else we use to track them in the system. So we'll talk a little bit about that as we go through the day. I should have looked at how to use this before. Thank you. I'll just get my thank yous out of the way first. I want to say a big thank you to Sail. I love Sail since this store opened, and the people that are in here, Rick and Phil and Cam. I've been getting fishing advice from them since the day the doors opened. And I fish with them, and I see them out on the water. And you couldn't have a more knowledgeable staff to help you. So to the Sail for all that you've done for the fishing community, for the musky community, and for Ottawa Fish School, thanks a lot. It's a pleasure to be here over the years. Ozil's Shimano. Very happy to be the Canadian musky guide for Shimano for the last 12 years. Best musky equipment on the market, and you can find it here at Sail as well. So muskies are called the fish of 10,000 casts traditionally. Okay? You put in a lot of time to get them. Technology has changed that. If you learn technology, it's not the fish of 10,000 casts anymore. Around Ottawa, I fish statistically for 1.45 to 1.86 fish a year over the years. So we fish all day, 10 hard hours, 2 people, 3 people for 1 fish, or 2 fish and 1 fish is success in the musky world. And if you're around Ottawa, you're lucky that it's a pretty good sized fish. An average fish on the Ottawa River, according to the Muskies Canada logs, an average fish somewhere around 39.5, 40 inches, a meter for you young people. An average fish on the Rideau, probably 33 to 36 inches every year. In the Rideau River right now, it's funny because I've been fishing the Rideau. I caught my first muskie 15 minutes from here on Long Island. back in the 70s. It's going through a renaissance right now. There's more 50-inch fish in the Rideau now that people are catching than I have ever seen in my whole life. And so a phenomenal fishery. The Ottawa, the Rideau, the Gatineau River, the Bon Shear, the Madawaska, all kinds of lakes through western Quebec, all kinds of small lakes that have muskies. And so the resource around here, absolutely unbelievable. How is technology changing fish? I told you about that one. I fish with a lot of Americans, and the most elite guides in the most elite places now, there's a new way to go out. It's drive around with your electronics, 4 or 5 units, looking in front of your boat, side of your boat, and not casting until you see fish. Driving around for 8 hours until they spot fish, they know where it is, they cast at it, they throw 2 casts. If the fish reacts, they continue to fish for it. If it doesn't, they leave. And that's a day. So as somebody with gray hair who grew up learning 10,000 casts for muskies, that seems like an absolutely bizarre concept. And for me, we don't see all the muskies that we catch. So the hard work factor still plays into it. But that technology, if you're not learning the new technology year by year, your catch rate is going to go. Your catch rate is going to decline. Because one of the things the technology is doing is letting everybody find fish. People who couldn't find fish can now find fish with just technology. And so fish learn based on experience. Getting caught is a really negative experience. Getting sonar waves bounced off you and then getting caught, eventually they start to figure things out. And so technology's changing the way the fish react to you. Personally, I'm always going to be the 10,000 cast guy if you're going out in my boat, but we'll see. I had a guest last year, actually, Musky John. He's a numbers guy. Every spot you hit, he says that we did 88 casts on the last spot. We did 44 here. We're at 132 right now. And he does this all day for 2 days. And we threw 777 casts in 2 days to have one fish come in behind the boat and turn circles on a bait and leave. Fortunately, we trolled for 2 hours, 1 hour each day, and we got 2 great big fish. So in the musky world, there's casting, there's trolling. Don't tell the fish how you want to catch them. Appeal to the fish. Be open and change. And if you're really hardcore, like Cam at the back, fly fishing, Cam's an amazing fly guy who builds amazing flies. And his musky numbers in the downtown Rideau, sorry, I'm so sorry. His muskies in the downtown core of Ottawa, his numbers are off the charts for fly fishing for muskies, which is as hard a way as that's taking something that's hard to do and trying to do it the hardest way possible. So I've had my hats off to you for years on your success. It's all around us. This fish, the fish that I showed you at the start, I caught with side imaging. I played a video at the Ottawa show this spring that Ashley did. Ashley, you guys know Ashley right here? Ashley's the most famous person in the store and around it this time, and I do this to her for good reason. She has 150,000 social media followers for good reason. She loves to fish. If you're not following her and you want to learn, go and look at her stuff. She makes the best videos, most educational content online, and her videos so good. I played one. I went out to get to fish with Ashley in the fall. So we went out for muskies and we were jigging for muskies. And we were looking at them on the finder. It's a video game. It really is. It's a whole different way to fish. So she put out a walleye video this spring that went to 2 million views in a couple of weeks. And it was so good, but it was exactly the same with a giant walleye that we were doing for muskie. And it was a fish coming in slow, and looking at a bait and then going away 3 times. And she had to talk that fish into biting. I think it took her 6 or 7 minutes and 3 or 4 tries playing with that fish. But again, without that technology, That's a whole new technique in the muskie world, because we only know how to fish fast. Traditionally, we fish fast for a fish that is the fastest swimming fish in fresh water. It was all about speed. So using technology, fishing slow, getting on top of fish, marking fish and going back for them, it's game changing, year by year by year. So you two, learn your technology, read the manuals, get people who will teach you, and that's how you're going to be the best of the best going into the future. Dr. Stephen Cook, the smartest guy, one of the smartest fisheries biologists in Canada, maybe in the world, tremendous researcher for salmon at Carleton University. He runs Cook Labs at Carleton University. We sponsor more research around Ottawa than any place in the world for muskie. So if you want to participate in any of it, cutting edge stuff, putting transmitters in fish. Like I said, in the Rito, we have 40 fish, the Jock, 20 fish with transmitters and transponders, following them around for 10 years. If I was a kid, I would have been a biologist. I mean, that's just fun stuff, and it's learning. And so Dr. Stephen Cook said the most important factor for catching a fish, no matter what species, no matter how you're fishing, is how close you get your bait to the fish's mouth. So your technology lets you do that. Tells you exactly where the fish is, how close it is to the bottom, lets you see your bait now. And so that very basic principle, you're taking advantage of that in technology. And muskies, for being the fastest swimming fish in fresh water, the biggest, baddest, so muskies' burst speeds are over 50 miles an hour. When we troll for them, we're trolling typically 5-6 miles an hour most of the time. As fast as you can fish, you can't outrun that muskie. But 2/3 of the time, that fish is on or near the bottom, inactive. So the paradox in muskie fishing is traditionally we're fishing as fast as we can for a fish that 2/3 of the time doesn't want to get up off the bottom and chase your bait. So again, your technology, finding where the fish is, and presenting slow, getting close to the fish. Fish will strike for aggression, fish will strike for territoriality, fish will strike because something is bothering them and it's too close. So there's a whole bunch of different reasons why you can catch that fish. Getting close to the fish, again, an absolute key. What do we have in the region? I told you how good the resource is in Ottawa and around Ottawa. There's muskie basically in every direction that we go from here. If you talk to the Americans and you look at their list of the top 10 muskie fisheries in the world, traditionally it's northwestern Ontario. Lake of the Woods, Eagle Lake, Wabigoon, Lac Seul. In the modern day, the top 5 or 6 muskie fisheries in the world are all related to eastern Ontario. Gananoque in the Kingston area of the Thousand Islands. Lake St. Francis, the best muskie fishery on the planet right now. Cornwall to Valleyfield. And I say right now because things change. Lake of Two Mountains, the section of the Ottawa River below the Carillon Dam going to Montreal. Again, a top 3 or 4 muskie fishery in the world. The Ottawa River, the lower Ottawa that we have here, from downtown Ottawa on down, again, a top 6 or 7 resource in the world. You have all of these musks for a really rare fish. You have all these fish right here in the city. You have access to the biggest fish in the world just outside of the city, and even right in the middle of downtown Ottawa. So, Ottawa River fish from the lower Ottawa River. Lake of Two Mountains fish. This is Mike Lazarus out of Montreal. Mike's the most accomplished guide in the world. A lot of the more famous guides in the modern day come from our region. And you know why that is? It's not because we're the best fishermen, although he is the best muskie guy on the planet. You're only as good as your resource. So if you have lots of muskies, you catch lots of muskies. And if you have lots of big muskies, you catch lots of big muskies. And so looking after your resource and your fish are the absolute key to maintaining the resource. Your muskies live to 30 years old in our area. And so we catch the same fish more than once. When we go out muskie fishing, the most important thing to us isn't catching that fish in the photo. The most important thing to us is putting that fish back. Because you get another photo, you're gonna get a bigger fish, you're gonna get a whole bunch of photos like that. But that fish going back to reproduce, because we don't stock, it's all natural reproduction. And the fact that we didn't stock means that we have original genetics. And every week, every couple of weeks, I hear Americans say, "John, that's the strongest fish I've ever had on my line." And that's because it's wild. It wasn't, no mixed genetics. And because it's a river fish. Okay, it's a wild fish and it's a river fish. And your river fish are stronger than your lake fish. Okay, they're on a treadmill in a system their whole life. They grow bigger fins, bigger tails, and they just have a whole lot more energy. So river fish are, and that's what we have here. St. Lawrence, that was a live release world record. A fish called huge jumbino. Kingston Gananoque, 59.5 inches. Caught by my friend David Doris. That picture's a terrible picture if you're a musky guy, because you know that it's dead fish taken out of marina. And Dave and Doris are all about catch and release. This fish died because they didn't have a good pair of hook cutters in the boat. They had a new pair, and they couldn't cut the hooks and release the fish. This is from holding a fish in the water to try and release it. Both of those people cried for a long time after that fish died, because again, the most important thing is releasing a fish. So for you guys, if you haven't had a hook in you yet, at some point you will. Later on, it just is in fishing. I got to find a better way to introduce that to the young guys. This is a pair of Nipex cutters. Okay, you need to be able to cut hooks. Forget you in fish. If the fish is hooked badly, if that fish is hooked badly, and it's your responsibility to release it, what are you going to do? If it's hooked down its throat, if it's got 3 or 4 treble hooks gnarled in the side of its mouth, or it's hooked in its gill, what are you going to do? Because you caught it. You're the one responsible for it. And so you need something that you can cut hooks. And in the musky world, we started cutting hooks. I don't know other people who fish other species that do that. But we started cutting hooks a long time ago. If it looks like it's going to compromise the handling of the fish at all, if it looks difficult, we just cut. And then the little pieces that are left will come out really easily with the end of your pliers. So we only take a muskie out of the, you guys have fray bills here? Yeah. You have a big kahuna? Yeah. Or yeah, please. The best release tool that we have in the boat, you need this, but you also need a net. You also need the right net. Like if you're gonna go and catch these fish, it's easy. You can catch them from the shore at Hog's Back or Dow's Lake or anywhere around here, but can you release it? Can you put it back and make sure it swims away? So this is one of the tools. There are other release tools that you know. Cam will come back with a net, and Musky World, we use big nets like this. And yeah, they're tough in small boats and difficult in kayaks and stuff, but that's our live well. And so your fish stays in your live well. We do all our work in the net. We get the hooks out, and make sure the fish is okay in the net, and then it comes out for the pictures only for 30 seconds. And we only hold them horizontal. We don't hold muskies like this. You can injure a muskie in 5 different places by doing that, especially larger, heavier fish. And so we only hold them like this. And so that big net that we'll see in a second again, just imperative, because you guys are going to catch same fish. A fish that you catch now that's 10 years old is going on 40 inches, 18 years old, 50 inches. The 40-inch fish that you catch right now, you'll catch it again when it's 56, 57 inches if you treat it right. And the real neat thing, here's something else something on behavior. Muskies want to follow the same pattern every single year. They want to spawn in the same bay. They want to recover near where they spawn, and then they travel to their summer home range. And they live there for 12 or 14 weeks, and then they wander back. So that migration route, that's it. That's the big kahuna. To people that don't fish muskies, you know, wow, that is a lot of work in the boat. Somebody who fishes muskies, that's the difference between a fish swimming away alive and compromising it. And so it's all about, musky fishing is all about looking after the fish. And so this hangs conveniently over the side of your boat. Okay. Big space, your fish is in the water, all your work happens in there. An absolute staple. This is, just preface this by saying, yeah, this is the golden age for musky fishing. You're just getting into it. Fishing in general has been on a plateau for interest a lot of years. The last lot of years, the two areas of hyper growth in fishing are musky fishing and fly fishing. And so Muskies Canada Club, the best thing that you can do for learning, for your learning curve, is to join the Muskies Canada Club. We had 100, I don't know what our numbers are now, we had 140 members last year. The reason it's such a big club is because we do the science. We work with the biologists in the field. If you want to put transmitters in fish and work with biologists, you can do that in Ottawa. We did it in the Petawawa River in Algonquin Park last year. Half our crew is out on a cleanup this morning. You should see the garbage that they got out of the Brewer Park in the downtown stretch. We do education, outreach education seminars like this on a regular basis. If you just want to come to the Legion meetings once a month or fish the tournaments and drink a pop, you can do that. If you want to participate in cutting edge science, absolutely, it's the club to join to do that. And it makes a real difference, what we've done over the years. Downtown, two abatement projects by the Bronson Street Bridge, $1 million rehabilitation of the fish pond in the Brewer Park. That was a pollution source and just a fish killer every year when that flooded. Now that's connected back to the Rideau, cameras at the mouth of it that you can go and look at online. Fish have access to that pond. It's clean water, it produces forage fish, muskies spawn in. So whatever you want out of your fishing, Muskies Canada is a great place to get it. Why is the Ottawa River so good? 13 dams and really consistent water levels, except for the super floods the last couple of years. But most fisheries have good years and bad years, depending on the conditions that existed when the fish spawned. In the Ottawa River, we have consistent levels and constant recruitment. That means every year is a good year to spawn. Every year puts lots of fish in the system. And so that's why we have both really good numbers and the chance to catch a world record fish, the genetics that actually produce a world record. I've done a lot of speaking in the States over the years, and so I give this presentation in a very gentle way down in the US. My boat is filled with Americans who come here to catch the fish of their life in Ottawa. I fish out of Plantagenet a lot, and Plantagenet is not a destination for tourists for really any reasons except for muskies. So the Americans really know what we have here. American muskies versus Canadian muskies. I've talked a lot in Ohio and Pennsylvania over the years. They have one muskie that made it to 14 years of age. 95% of their fishery, their population's not far off of the population in Canada. 95% of their fisheries are stocked. a few fish that made it to 12 years old. They have a lot of die-off problems, disease problems. Nothing close to the wild, originally genetic fish that we have up here that live twice as long, grow larger, and are twice as strong. All natural, best resource in the world. Another neat component of musky behavior is that in our first telemetry study, where we followed fish around on the Ottawa River, we had fish that lived shallow all year. We had other fish that lived deep all year. And a third group that used both shallow and deep. But these communities of fish don't seem to overlap, especially on the Rideau. We've proved that, where we've had different groups that don't cross territories, that don't interbreed, that don't mix. And so if you're chasing muskies, shallow around the weeds is a really good technique. Trolling big lures out deep is a good technique. Jigging off the bottom is a good technique. There's muskies all through the system, so you can apply a whole bunch of different techniques towards catching them. This fish here, it's a terrible picture, but it's what we did back in the 90s. This guy started river rat lures, which is one of the many famous lures that were started around Ottawa. This fish has a transmitter in it from a 1994 study that we did. That fish is called Gertha, and the transmitter was put in her when she was 47.5 inches long. And we caught that fish on July 4th in 2000. 6 years earlier, the transmitter was put in her. She was 47.5 inches when the transmitter was installed. She was 50.5 inches when she was caught. 6 years later, grew a ½ inch a year for those years. And she was 100 feet from where she was 6 years earlier on the transmitter. So what I said to you about keeping logs and keeping records of where you see fish and contact fish, that will serve you forever, because that fish at 50 inches is going to live for another 10 or 12 years. She's still going to be in that area. And if you saw her once or caught her once, you know she's still around there. Even if you don't see her, and that's good feedback, if you know she's there and you're not seeing her, it's you. It's not her. It's you. It's your presentation. You're not getting close enough to her. It's the wrong time, the wrong lure. Whatever you're doing is wrong. You're not seeing the fish and she's there. So the logs, writing down and creating history, that'll catch you more fish going forward for the rest of your life. There are predictable periods. I said we fish all day, 9 hours, 10 hours for one fish. There are very predictable periods of activity for this fish. You can predict when you're most likely to catch a fish before you head out for the day. So sunset is the most active time for a muskie. Early morning is the least active time for a fish. A lot of people want to get up at 4:30 and go fishing. There's a lot to that. But from all our transmitter work, the most active time for muskies is close to sunset and the hour or two after sunset. So when I go out for charters, we don't start till 1 in the afternoon and we fish till 10. So we can take advantage of that second half of the day. It's not a get up early in the morning fish. Another predictable time, our fish are more reactive to the moon than anything else that swims. So every day we track the moon rise, the moon set. Those are your minors. Your major activity periods are your moon directly overhead and your moon directly on the other side of the world. And you need to know when those are, because if you go out and you see a fish in the morning, nothing for 3 or 4 hours, but you have a peak coming up at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you use that peak to go back to where you saw that fish, because that fish is going to be more active now. You go to where you know a big fish lives. You go to your best spot. Right? You're really trying to take advantage of that sunset, that moon, and the other real natural peak, pre-storm. Okay? When you have blue skies and that nasty system coming in and your barometer is dropping, that'll make experienced fish make mistakes. Okay? these fish that live for 30 years, they get smart. They figure out your game. They know you. You need to, as they get more experienced, you need to show up on peaks. You need to fish different baits. You need to find a storm coming in at a sunset on a moon peak and put 3 peaks together when a fish is really likely to make. The more pressure changes everything. The more experienced your fish get, the less likely they are to make mistakes, and the more you need to take advantage of timing. Any questions at this point? Five essential pieces of equipment. I already went over the net and the cutters. That's your 2 release tools. Musky fishing rods are getting longer and longer. This is a 9-foot long rod. Musky rods are getting longer. Rod lockers in boats are not getting longer. Trucks are also not getting longer. Neither is the space in your car. So 9-foot rods don't fit well into anything. You can get really, this is Shimano Compre. Extends out to 9 feet. Okay? Fits anywhere that I want it to fit. My sail rod cutter. I have 80 or 100 pound test on here. I have a fluorocarbon leader that's 150 pound test. The 100 pound test is so that I have a fast fight with the fish. It's the most intense 45 seconds or 2 minutes that you're ever going to have in fishing. I don't want it to be longer than that. I want it to be able to overpower it. Long rod does a few things for you. One, it lets you cast. It lets you cast easy. It lets you keep your back straight, because casting all day is really hard. It lets you make long casts, and more than the cast, it lets you finish at the side of the boat with big circles. Traditionally it's called a figure 8, but in Ottawa, we know that big fish can't turn sharp circles, so we just do one big oval. And the craziest thing that you'll ever have happen in your fishing is having a 1.5 meter long fish come in behind your bait and turn circles on your bait 8 or 10 times and then hit it. And that's what we live for in musky fishing. We catch 40% of our fish right at your feet. 40% of our fish right there. So the long rod is really essential these days. Helps you in casting, and it helps you in finishing at the side of the boat. If you want to make your life easy, spend your money on a good reel. Tranx 400, V-reel in the musky industry. Tranx 300, they have at the counter. That's what I throw personally. All the same power. I put a power handle on it. It's the most powerful reel with the most ease of retrieve. I'm 63, it's all about getting easier. So the reel is what makes your job easier in musky fishing. And those are hard to bring in. Those lures are hard to bring in, but the reel is what it's all about. In terms of baits that work, the most productive lure in the musky world, the last 22 years, was invented by a housewife in Minnesota. It's called a cowgirl. Any double-bladed bucktail. 2 blades intertwined like this puts a vibration out that fish haven't seen, and even to this day, it fools them more times than it should. It makes this seem like a much bigger bait, a much bigger meal in the water than it is. But those 2 blades together are everything, and that'll catch more than half of your fish. And that blade is good for 5 out of 6 of your of the months of your musky season. Mag 8 blades, 2 different size blades. This one has a hex finish on it. All of those are evolutions because originally it started out with 2 plain ones, and fish get used to those things. And this disco ball, this is a bright sunshine day. On your bright days, you use the brightest lure that you can. On your dull days, your dark days, you use a dark lure. So your silvers and your golds in the bright sunshine, so that it looks like a mirror ball in the water. Doesn't seem logical, but it is. You think of a fish underneath it, and a lot of light refracting off of that, you don't get a good look at what it is. So that's why they're hidden. And one other color rule in the muskie industry, you can use any color you want as long as it's black. You never go wrong with the black. Spinnerbait trolling, we have some guys who invented, Rob Day and the River Rats guys started spinnerbait trolling. This is something that we say we invented in Ottawa. Okay? Phenomenal bait. If you can cast it or troll it, really high production bait for us. The other revolutionary bait in the muskie world now, last 25 years, baits with tails. Okay? This is different in every angler's hands, and there's no wrong way to fish it. So if you throw this out to deeper water, something as deep as this room on Lake St. Clair, 18 feet deep, you're letting it sink down, ripping it up, letting it sink down, ripping it up, and you're covering the water column. What I like to use these for is when fish are inactive. And they're on the bottom, when they don't want to get up and chase. Okay. When fish are active, they'll get up and go 20 or 30 feet. When they're inactive, they might not move 3 feet. They might move 2. They might move 1.5 feet. And so just throwing this out and letting it get close to the bottom and swimming it back and letting the tail do the work. Retrieving really slowly, which is counterintuitive for muskies. That's one of the baits that you absolutely have in your line. Off the sale shelves right here, bulldogs, absolute staple. Swim baits, really easy bait to cast. Talking about easy, and again, the tail does the work. You want to bring that in quick. Just get that tail humming. And do your circles, because your fish will take a moment to show up on it. But good baits right off the shelf. Last year for the this is another a lift bait, a crankbait. Last year is the first time ever that our Muskies Canada Club caught more fish on a lure that wasn't a double inline last year than ever before. I can say that right, but crankbait. Okay. This is a hybrid bait with a lip that swims and rubber tail at the back, and again, it just looks very real in the water. Easy to fish, good in the constant pit, really easy to fish around the weeds. It's not going deep. It's got a rattle in it too. So if you've got brown water in your section, you're top rated. Top water baits, only the best bait 15 or 20% of the time, but it catches a higher percentage of big fish than all the other baits. Big fish make mistakes on these more than any other bait. So really easy to throw, and the most fun you can have is watching a fish eat a top water, right? I like these over the walk the dog style bait. The walk the dog style bait will generate more action for you. There we go. However, this you'll take more pictures with, because they miss the top water more than anything.
Just when I said the bird. Watch
I hope that's a pretty good introduction to the resource in the area, some basics of musky behavior, some basics on technique. If you want more learning, again, Muskies Canada, absolutely the best way to go about it. Join the club, participate as much as you want, participate in the cutting edge science, come to the monthly meetings, come and fish the tournament. We have 4 chapter events that we go out up here. Every chapter has their own event. There's opportunities to fish all over Ontario, Quebec, and all the way out to New Brunswick. Thanks very much for coming out today.